Please join me in welcoming Canada's next astronauts, Jenni, Sidey, and Joshua Kutryk.
That was, of course, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announcing Canada's two newest astronauts yesterday at Canada 150 celebration. Jenni, Sidey, and Joshua Kutryk were chosen from nearly 4,000 candidates after a one-year selection process. They'll begin a two-year training program in Houston this August, and they're both joining us now from Ottawa. Jenni and Joshua, many congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Jenni, so let's talk about yesterday. How did it feel to be on stage with the Prime Minister, having your name read out, all those thousands of people in front of you, and really millions around the world hearing this announcement?
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. Obviously, a lot of work has led to that moment, and when we found out, we kind of had to keep this a bit of a secret. So to finally have it announced in that way and be able to share it with the rest of Canada was pretty special.
Joshua, tell us about the selection process. We imagine it must be pretty grueling on a number of different levels. What was the hardest part of it for you?
Yeah, it was. It's certainly been a long year, and in a lot of ways it feels good to be done with the year. There's a couple of things I would mention, but the hardest part was just doing the tests, because some of them were designed to be very challenging and frustrating and stressful. But maybe the hardest thing of all was just waiting in the unknown. You didn't know what was coming next. And you never knew how well you were doing. You received very little feedback, so that was frustrating and difficult to deal with.
Jenni, I understand that empathy was actually one of the criteria that you were being judged on. So how exactly do you measure something like that, and why is that even important in a job like this?
I mean, it's hugely important. Maybe it's not what we typically think of when we think of these sort of space missions for the first time, but really, you're working in a team, and it's a team of a lot of people that you don't necessarily interact with every day. So that kind of ability to get along with people and to share in a team is going to be essential. And that's what they were looking for when we did these very, very difficult tasks in teams, especially when you're tired and really you're running out of steam. They're looking to see how you perform with other people when things get tough. So I know that's a difficult thing to measure, but the Canadian Space Agency did a pretty good job of looking for those features in candidates.
And how did they do that? What did they ask you?
Oh, everything. I mean, the reflection that you experience in this process is definitely there throughout. I mean, you go into these tasks, they're very, very difficult. You're in groups, small groups, trying to achieve some sort of solving a puzzle or some sort of physical task, and then afterwards you're asked to reflect on how you performed, how your teammates performed, what you contributed and what they contributed, and I'm sure all of that feeds into whatever system they chose to select from.
I'm going to ask both of you guys this question. I'll begin with Joshua. Why did you decide to become an astronaut? What were you doing in your life that led up to this moment?
I was just growing up. I was about 6 years old, and I've always been just so enthusiastic about science and about exploring. But I do remember a definite moment when I went to the Edmonton Space Science Centre. This is in the early 80s, and I remember seeing Canadarm1. It was displayed there, it was working. And at the time, it was being used in space by Canadian astronauts. And I remember having that realization that, wow, this Canadian technology was in orbit, being used by human beings, many of them Canadian. That was a fundamental realization for me, and I knew right then that I wanted to work in the field, so it was very important to me.
Well, Joshua is mentioning an invention, a Canadian invention. And Jenni, I know for you, it was a Canadian person that inspired you. Roberta Bondar, of course, the first Canadian female to become an astronaut. She's one of your idols. So
absolutely.
She's someone that inspired you and countless women around the world. What does it feel like now knowing that you, in part, are going to be a role model for people?
I mean, that's something that I'm incredibly excited about. I mean, the influence that Roberta Bondar and these other role models had on me was huge, really, really big, because I remember being little and just being excited about her mission and who she was and the fact that she was Canadian and a scientist as well. That was huge for me. So to be in a similar position now, I don't think that's really sunk in yet, and that's going to take a while because, again, that was so important to me and that had a big impact. But if I can do even a part of that for some Canadians and some people who are growing up today, I'll be so happy. 'Cause, yeah, that was important to me.
Guys, as we move forward, you went through a one-year process to get selected. that's not the end of the line. There's 2 more years to go to get trained for this work. So, Joshua, tell us a little bit about what you're looking forward to next, how this process moves forward.
Yeah, I'm very anxious to get going with the real work of this job for the Canadian Space Agency. And there's a lot of work, like you point out. The business of going to space, as you would suspect, is very complicated. And so there's a lot to learn. We have 2 years of studying some pretty technical subject matter in Houston with NASA on behalf of our agency, and we have a lot to learn. We have to learn Russian. So there's a lot of studying involved over the next couple of years. The good news is that that's stuff that Jenni and I are both very passionate about. We love learning. We've always loved studying. It's evident in how we've lived our life. So I'm really looking forward to that, to the learning aspect.